What's up, Pirate Nation? I'm your host, George Balekji, and welcome to Hall Talk, a student-run debate show highlighting the very latest in Seton Hall athletics. Tonight we'll discuss what wasn't a terrible loss for the men's basketball team against Mercer last Saturday, as well as an exclusive interview with members of the club rugby team. First, let's begin with a quick rundown of Seton Hall sports for the past weekend. On Friday the 15th, Seton Hall welcomed back one of the greatest women's basketball teams in program history to honor them in the Walsh Gymnasium. The 1993-94 women's team, who celebrated their 20th anniversary of their incredible Sweet 16 run in the program's first ever tournament appearance. The current women's team did not let the big night go to waste, as they beat Weber State 78-61, led by junior redshirt Brushay Ali, who finished with 14 points and 17 rebounds, being the first double-double of her career, and was complemented by Tabitha Richardson-Smith pouring in 27 points of her own. Then on November 17th, the girls traveled to the University of South Carolina, where they were handed their first loss of the season in an 88-67 finish. As for the cross-country men's team, traveled to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania for the NCAA Mid-Atlantic Regional Championship, where 5 underclassmen recorded a scoring time led by the Flan himself, Ryan Flannery, as the Pirates finished 25th as a team. As for the women, they placed 27th overall, led by Nyala Eddings, who was the fastest Pirate for the 9th consecutive meet, and was followed by junior Mary Mington and Desire Blackburn. Next, I'm joined by club rugby athletes and teammates Joseph Schlossberg and Marlon Gonzalez, and then a panel discussion about the men's basketball, where I'll be joined by Aaron Ross and John Fanta. Joined here by Marlon Gonzalez and Joseph Schlossberg, both captains of this year's rugby team. Thanks for joining me, guys.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
So you guys finished 3-5 last year, haven't made the playoffs since 2003, but this year you really turned things around. After opening up with 1 loss, you go on a 5-game winning streak, finish here at 6-2. What was really the turnaround for this season, Marlon?
Turnaround this season was going into Vassar, our second game of the season, knowing we had to get a big win. And then we come out with a 22-14 victory, and then that kind of set the tone and the pace for the rest of the year for us.
Did you notice, now you're a senior, Joe, you've been in the program for 4 years. Did you notice anything different about this team before the season that you really thought you guys could make something happen?
George, I feel like this team, we just really came together as a brotherhood, and we did team dinners, we had 6:30 practices, and it's something we really never had, and it just made the family aspect come out.
And to clear the air, when you say 6:30, you mean in the AM, right?
6:30 in the morning, yes.
You gotta like the guys if you want to get up that early with them, I guess. Now, what I have to ask is, what do you think your biggest game this season was?
Biggest game for me personally, I'd have to say probably be that Vassar game. Like I said before, it really set the tone of the season. We weren't used to winning as a team, and then that kind of just set that in our head that we had it.
What about for you, Joe?
I'd have to agree with him. I'd say Vassar, because that first game when we played them, it really set the tone. They're not only like our rivals, they're more the rivals of the league, and every team just wants to make sure they beat them, and it was just nice for Seton Hall to finally get a win on their field, which was the first time in school history.
That's really awesome. Now, what about for the rest of the seniors? I know there's 8 of you. Who out of those seniors really stepped up that isn't necessarily a captain?
As a captain, honestly, I have to talk about Joey and our other captain, Jacob Carvalho. They both stepped up greatly, Joey in the back line and Jacob as a scrum half. They really just led the team in experience. I mean, these two have been with the team since the beginning. Actually, Jacob came in as a sophomore, Joey since freshman year. But these guys have basically been leading the team since I was a freshman.
Now, you say they've been coming in since you were freshman season leaders. Any other classmen really caught your eye this season and really stepped up?
Yeah, we actually have one player named Brian, I think his name is. We use our rugby nicknames, so we really don't know our names. But he came out, he was a bigger guy, played football, and just one of those guys you look at and right away you knew he was going to be something. And he's really shown his talent, and he's been a huge asset to our team.
Now, I know the famous quote for rugby is, it's a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. Can you guys say that is true in fact for you too?
I mean, I really think that's the only way you can put it. We're all hooligans, and when you're out there on the field, you hate each other, you're playing your enemy. And then right after the game, you're shaking hands and you're just saying good match. It's like you respect each other.
Now, you guys were the 2nd seed coming into the playoffs. Tell me about how deep you made the run in.
We had a tough game in the beginning of the playoffs against Vassar University. They came out strong. We came out strong as well. We there was a questionable call at the end by the referee, and we ended up losing the game 12-13. But in all honesty, it was a winning game on our part.
And as a junior, you can still get out on the field next year. For
do.
Joe, do you see yourself playing after your 4 years here?
100%. It's one of those sports. When I first started playing, I really didn't know if it was for me. You give it a shot, and I don't think I'll ever go a year in my life without playing until I can't.
And that's great to hear, and it's really great what you guys did for the program. Obviously, brought a lot more awareness. You see a lot more about you guys in Setonian. Everyone talking about you guys, and you got more respect around campus. Really appreciate what you guys done. Thank you for joining me today for this interview, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, I'll be joined with John Fanta and Aaron Ross for a panel discussion over about men's basketball this past weekend. Now I'm joined with Aaron Ross and John Fanta, and we'll be discussing the men's loss to Mercer, where they lost 77-74 in double overtime. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Pleasure. Having me.
Now, as we know, we witnessed them lose 77-74. We were up by one at half, actually 28-27 going into the first half. We witnessed Fuquan drop a career high with 35 points on the night, but at the same time, not any other Pirate broke 10 points on the night. What is your opinion on this? Was it a bad loss, or did it really affect the men as far as their esteem for the season, or does it really hurt them in, I guess you could say, seeding when it really matters?
I'd say it's a decently bad loss because of the way they schedule it, how they just played them 2 years ago. They have 11 returning players there at Mercer, and they're just coming out. They're a good team, we know. They put up 90 points before. They had a tight game with Texas early in the season. They lost, but it was still a close one. They're a scrappy team. The only other good team in their conference, Florida Gulf Coast. I think that could hurt our seedings later in the season, definitely.
What do you think about it, Fanta?
Yeah, the Atlantic Sun is a conference that has been able to have success in the NCAA tournament. Had it not been for Florida Gulf Coast last season, Mercer would have been the NCAA tournament. 500-plus game winner Bob Hoffman is a great coach over there. They had 11 returning players. So this team was loaded. Guys, it wasn't a good piece of scheduling. Seton Hall scheduled this team when those Mercer players were sophomores, and then had 2 years later had that game being played at Mercer, and now you have a Seton Hall team that we said at the beginning that was going to have some time to find how they would mesh. That's why this non-conference schedule is what it is. Mercer's one of the tougher tests. Hall went there, and they had that lead, but it's a matter of finishing, and they had trouble finishing against Kent State, barely fought them off. Defensively, you can't get lazy, and Mercer only shot 4 free throws in the first half, George, but at the same time, you have to look at the Hall's physicality dropped. Seton Hall needed to use that. They lost because of it, but were able to get that bounce back win against Monmouth.
Now, if you look at that, we see how Fuquan, like I said, he had a career high in points, but really there was no other teammate he got support from. We had 3 of the starting 5 finish with 9 points, and no one from the bench broke 10 either. Even Sterling Gibbs, who was really lightning in a bottle opening the gate, he really stepped through, hit his free throws, was efficient from the field every game. He ended up shooting 2 for 7 on the night, and he shot 4 for 8 from the free throw line. So he really wasn't a big addition to the offense. Do you see this, is this game a red flag as what could happen, or was it just one of those nights for a team that happens to everyone?
It's not a red flag for me. It's early on in the season, and Coach Willard said it after Game 1. He's terrified, as is, about the first 6 games of the season because he knows his team is not going to be at full strength. It's going to take time for this team to develop. They're a whole new look at guys. What is a red flag for me is not Sterling Gibbs, it's not Edwin, it's not Auda. It's where is the scoring going to come from off the bench, and I think that's going to be something that we're going to continue to see in the backcourt. You look at it at face value, and Hakeem Harris and on top of that, Tom Mayan, they just don't bring you much scoring. So outside of Gibbs and Cena guys, it does concern me a little bit, and then it's just a matter of finishing. Seton Hall should have won this game. Lesson learned, not a red flag. Willard's a good coach.
Now, do you guys see as a problem with Fuquan really carrying the load for scoring?
A little bit, but also because we need the other backups, like how Monga came up huge last night and showed that he can actually be a good key role. Auda was huge. So Fuquan can't always carry the load. Like he's shown before that he can play, he can put up numbers, but it's not always consistent. Like some games he'll be off. Exactly like last night was another showing of it, how could have been fatigue as a factor, but we don't want to make that as an excuse because we're thinking NBA, you don't want it to go like that. So I don't think. But we do want him to carry the load occasionally because he is up there in the rankings now, a leader in the team.
For me, you want to be an NBA draft prospect, which he is. You have to be able to do that. That's why you're on that list. So I'm not concerned. Fuquan Edwin's not going to be concerned. It's just going to continually, for this team to be able to finish. That was their major issue last year, and it's fitting that at the beginning of this season they've had trouble doing it. There are growing pains with this team. There's a lot of new-look players that don't even remember last year, and there's players that can share that veteran experience. Let's give this team some time, but now a big challenge awaits for them in Brooklyn, and one that they have to embrace this weekend at the Coaches vs. Cancer Classic.
Now, I like that you brought up Brooklyn, because we do know the Coaches vs. Cancer tournament coming up in the Barclays Center this week. Now, as we see, Friday night they'll have Oklahoma, who's currently 27th in the nation. Now, that'll be our first true test of the season. You can say Mercer, after dropping 95 earlier before playing us, they were our first test as well. Now, they will be playing Oklahoma, and then Saturday night will be the big game. We'll either get Virginia Tech early in the evening, or if we win and beat Oklahoma, we'll have Michigan State at night. So I think really this is upcoming into the weekend. Now, real quick, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's a big statement because we're coming off of a big win after a bad loss. Coming in, we need to make a statement here against Oklahoma. It's a big one, potentially play Michigan State, #1 team in the country. We need to get a win here, make a statement, let the country see that Seton Hall can play.
Real quick, John?
I want to see how Sterling Gibbs, now he's going to face a true test on both ends of the floor with both teams guard play, whoever the Hall is facing. So I want to see Gibbs play a complete game of basketball. And as a whole, this team needs to play 40 minutes of basketball and be able to get a game like Stefan Manga had against Monmouth, 14 points, huge confidence booster. You need somebody else to come off the bench and contribute and make things happen. Hall needs a split this weekend because all eyes will be on them at Barclays.
Thank you very much, John. That was a good point. Thank you, Aaron, too.
Thank you.
I'm George Balekji from Hall Talk, and thank you for joining us this week.